Welcome to this week's edition of CEO Corner. I'm Otis Rawl, President and CEO of the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, and we're coming to you from the Speaker of the House's office. And with us today, we have the Speaker Bobby Harrell.
It's great to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Before we start talking about the issues that the House will be working on this year and issues that are important to you, I know you've got an important event coming up the latter part of July and the 1st of August. You want to tell us a little bit about what's going on?
I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you. The Southern Legislative Conference is coming to South Carolina. We're going to be in Charleston this summer. It is an opportunity for us to show off South Carolina to folks literally all over the southeastern United States. There are 15 different states involved. There are probably a couple of thousand people here. I've been asking folks, and you guys have been very helpful, thank you, to help us by raising money to put on the event properly. Because we are showcasing South Carolina, we're going to send these folks back to their home states with a wonderful taste of what South Carolina is all about and try to generate more economic development, economic activity in the long run as a result of these folks being here this summer.
Well, I know I've seen some of the studies that project anywhere from $10 to $15 million impact for the Charleston and surrounding areas, so that's pretty significant impact.
And that's from just the event.
Right.
And then these folks, if we do it right, and that's why we're trying to make sure we raise the money to do it right. If we do it right, these folks go back home and tell everybody, you know, I can't believe how great that was, how much fun it was, and generate some more activity over the years.
Well, I know we're looking forward to participating and being down there, and I think it'll be a grand event. I want to talk a little bit about the issues that are important to the House and important to the Republican caucus and important to the business community. And I think number one on everybody's agenda this year is Employment Security Commission and the reforms. Your thoughts on where you think that piece of legislation is going to go and what it'll look like?
You know, we are going to basically turn that agency upside down. What's happened there is terrible. They went from having an $800+ million surplus in 2000 to an $800 million deficit, a $1.6 billion swing just last year. For that to have occurred, and the Employment Security Commission not to notify the General Assembly or the Governor's office the way they were supposed to so that we could be dealing with these problems is just inexcusable. The number of people, the number of your members who have had to let people go for cause, somebody had drugs, or somebody was on drugs or absenteeism or whatever reason, they've had to let people go in those circumstances. Over 40,000, I think it was in 2008, asked for benefits and had it challenged. Only 280 of the 42,000 people actually had their benefits denied. Right. It's just the agency needs to be changed dramatically, and we're going to do that.
Well, I know it's important to us because from a liability standpoint, I think the business community will be on the hook for somewhere around $2 billion before it's all said and done with. So reforms are necessary for us to try to just stop the bleeding more than anything else.
First order is stop the bleeding, kind of like the old joke about first thing is you stop digging.
Right,
you know, but the first thing is to stop the bleeding, and then we've got to figure out how we're going to deal with the deficit that's been created. It is a terrible problem that we've got to deal with. None of us wants to raise taxes to deal with that problem. So we're trying to work our way through figuring out how we're going to get it done.
Well, I know it's going to be an exciting 4 or 5 weeks to see what happens. So, but on the bright side of the thing, you had asked the Chamber as well as some other business partners, Bernie Maybank and Lewis Gossett, George Wolf, April Allen, to put together an economic development incentive bill to look at ways of moving the state forward. And I was talking to Greg Foster just a little bit earlier, and he said that right now we have 110 sponsors on that piece of legislation. I'm not sure that I've ever seen that many co-sponsors on a piece of legislation.
I don't know that I have either, particularly a piece of legislation that does as much as this does. I mean, I guess I've seen that many co-sponsors when we honored a high school for winning the state championship, but I don't think I've ever seen that many co-sponsors on something this major. There are 124 members of the House. One of them is on active duty in the military right now, so there's 123 people here, and 110 of them are co-sponsors. You know, it's amazing to me the amount of support people have. But what it tells you is that the membership recognizes the dire straits that we're in with the unemployment rate, with all of the issues that are going on in the economy around the state, and everybody is coming together, Republicans, Democrats, black, white, men, women, rural, urban, everybody's coming together to try to solve the problem.
Well, I know for us it's jobs, 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 and creating jobs, and I think
Mm-hmm.
this bill will go a long way toward getting that done. Any prognostications on how quickly that bill will move through
We're
the
trying to
House?
move it pretty quickly. We're going to have a subcommittee meeting on it here in the next couple of weeks,
Okay.
get it up to full committee. The goal is to try to get it on through the House and over to the Senate pretty quickly. Thank you for the efforts that you did and the time that you personally spent doing that, Otis. I can't thank you enough, and the rest of the folks that were involved in that for the efforts you guys put on. I asked y'all to do that back in August. Y'all went to work in August. You met, gosh, weekly or every couple of weeks at the furthest distance out, and literally many, many times over the fall, and had legislation or had proposed an outline of proposed legislation available for us when we got back into session. So thank you for what you did. We're going to move it just as fast as we can.
Well, we appreciated that opportunity to be part of it. I know our membership was engaged, and we're making recommendations all along the way. Probably one of the most contentious bills, probably tort reform. We had some sort of tort reform 4 or 5 years ago, but at least from the business perspective, we didn't really tackle the big issues of non-economic punitives and some of those other issues that would put us in a favorable economic development position in recruiting businesses and retaining businesses in this state. I know that you introduced the bill for us from Civil Justice Reform Coalition, and hearings are being held. Can you talk a little bit about the process and where do you think that process is right now, and will we see some movement on tort reform this year, and if we do, what do you think it'll look like?
I hope we do. I fully expect us to get the bill out of the House and have it over to the Senate, and then we're going to be trying to do everything we can to get the Senate to move the bill this year as well. There are two ways you judge the effectiveness of tort reform or workers' comp reform legislation. One is by what the national perception of the business climate in South Carolina is. Do people believe when they look at South Carolina that we're business friendly because of tort, the workers' comp laws? Do they believe we're business friendly or not? That's one way. The second way, and the more objective way, is what's happened to premiums. When we passed workers' comp reform in the state, workers' comp premiums have literally gone down since we passed the workers' comp reform. We had been on a trajectory where we were about the middle of the pack, 26th, 25th in the country, something like that, and headed in the wrong direction on workers' comp premiums. That has turned around, and those premiums have come back down now as a result of the workers' comp reform. We passed tort reform, and it didn't affect general liability rates to any large measure. So what we've got to do is to pass another round of tort reform that will accomplish those two goals. One, to positively affect by reducing general liability premiums, and secondly, to create the image of South Carolina within the international business community that we've done what we need to do to protect the businesses who want to come here from lawsuits.
Well, I know it's real interesting when you look at where we are in comparison to other states from our tort and litigation position nationwide, and we're not in a favorable position, and what you really don't know is how many looks you don't get because of that.
Right.
But I do know that a lot of companies that are looking to headquarter in South Carolina are a little bit hesitant at time because they worry about us not having caps on punitive damages and what that can mean in the long run. So I think that is one of the major issues that are a concern of the business community. If we could get that rectified, then we could possibly have a good many more headquarters looking at that.
And Georgia has caps on punitive damages. North Carolina has caps on punitive damages. A number of states around us do. So we've got to do that, if for no other reason, to be competitive.
Well, I know, Mr. Speaker, and I want to give kudos to you. I know when I go around and meet with my cohorts from other states, they get sick and tired of me telling how good we have it here in this state from a business standpoint.
Thank you.
And the relationship that we have with the House of Representatives, Senate, and how y'all actually look after, and not just due to your leadership. We appreciate you always putting South Carolina business first in everything you do.
I appreciate your saying that. It's all about the economy. I told somebody recently that the top 3 issues in South Carolina are jobs, 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 and the 4th most important issue is jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is the issue in South Carolina, and if you're able to go around the country and begin to tell folks, you know, not only are we business friendly in the past with things that we've worked very closely with the Chamber on, but we've done this most recent thing, tort reform, to help make us more competitive. I just think that'll be good for us. That'll just be good for us and good for our economy.